All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call the Common Council meeting to order, and if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, if you could help us out with roll call, please.
Absolutely. Jeff Crickon.
Here.
Jim Barron.
Here.
Jackie Valdy.
Here.
Wayne Dean.
Here.
Matt Grimmer.
Here.
Kevin Maples.
Here.
Tim Eicher.
Here.
Kent Atwell.
Present.
Tom Hafner. Jim Hannes.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. I want to let everybody know that tonight is our trial run on a live YouTube feed. So citizens are no longer going to be required to have cable to be able to see these meetings. They'll be on demand via YouTube. So let's hope it all goes well. So we have a special order of business tonight, the presentation by Judge Hausman as to the annual state of the court. Judge, if you'd come on up, please.
Good evening. I've given each of you, hopefully I think I have, share one, copy of the activity for the court for this year for your review, as well as attaching copies for the 3 years previous to give you some idea of the way the court's operated. I think I say this every year that I make this report. I have absolutely no idea what these numbers are until somebody hands them to me about 4 days ago, because we don't operate on how much money we collect. We operate on trying to do the right thing. There is one thing that maybe when you looked at this, it might jump out at you, and it did me, was the number for the gross receipts in December, which was considerably lower than what would normally we would see on a monthly basis. I took the liberty of calling the chief as well as the captain, and the chief was not in at the time, so I talked to the captain, and he explained to me that the reason December of this year was lower than most other months was because there had been an uprising in the number of tickets that are what they call property claims. It's a pretty general term. It's kind of misleading, to be quite honest with you. But these claims take up a lot of time of the police officers. And because of that, they're not on the beat as much on the streets for the issuing of the various tickets when they see there's violations. So that was the explanation that was given to me on why that number is much lower than it would normally be on a monthly basis. As far as the rest of the operation goes, I think that quite frankly the court has been operating at around 1,000 to 1,500, 1,000 to maybe 1,100 cases per month. I'm very happy with the clerk that I have. She's been with me for some time. The police people that are assigned to the court on the evening do a terrific job in making sure that we can get through the calendar in an expeditious manner, and yet try to address the concerns of people when they raise questions about their tickets, et cetera, et cetera. I'm open to any questions you may have. Like I say, this gives you an idea of how the court is operated and will continue to operate as far as I see. Any questions?
I just say thank you.
That's right, Jim. Well, I hope this is for your attention. I think, who was sharing a copy? Okay, Jim, I see. We'll give you the last one I got here.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. Thank you much.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you, Judge. All right, we're going to move on to item 2, which is City of Delafield citizen comments pertaining to the consent agenda items only. Any citizens' comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, those are closed. Get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Next, we have citizen Delafield comments pertaining to items not on the consent agenda. So anything else? And we're going to ask Pat and Jim and their guests to come on, Jeff, to come on up, and they're going to share some information with us.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you
Jeff Gross is the Chief Financial Officer for the Kettle Moraine School District. Jim Romanowski, many of you recognize as a person in our community. He serves on the school board and is our clerk, and I am the superintendent for the School District of Kettle Moraine. We have been visiting all of the municipal leaders in the 10 municipalities that we serve to bring to your attention the fact that our board has decided to put a question on the ballot April 2nd, which is for an operating referendum. And I want you to be aware because people will ask you questions. We know that we are trying our best to get information out, and we have a very active schedule in this brochure, which I believe you've all been given, or not?
No.
Okay, can you pass those out? Yeah, that would be great. Of public meetings that we're having, we will also put it out on our website. We have a website developed with lots of frequently asked questions. This is very unique because we are at a point where we need to come to the community in order to maintain the programming that we have and retain the employees. Kettle Moraine is one of the lowest funded school districts in the county, and we are really competing for talent with others that are funded at a higher level, can pay higher salaries, and significantly have much better benefits. You can see, if you open it up, on the lower right corner, a yellow box that talks about the average deductible plan for others in Waukesha County is $2,400. 81% of our employees are on a $10,000 family plan deductible, which is probably much more comparable to private sector. The difficulty is I'm not competing with private sector for my teachers. And we are facing an incredible challenge with our health care, having been told we can expect 25% increase in our costs every year for the next several years. So we are going out for a non-recurring 5-year operational referendum that will get us through those 5 years, keep us viable, and keep the programming that we have. We've got some really important graphics in here that show the impact that not receiving a cost of living increase since 2008, increases that were significantly less than a cost of living, has challenged us with our fixed costs. I'm sure you can all relate to that. Our fixed costs go up regardless of the number of students we serve. Our board tries very hard to keep the tax levy as flat as possible. And you can see that the anticipated tax levy rate for the district, if this is passed, would be $10.13, which is significantly, maybe it's not as significant, but it is less than it was in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. So we do try to be conscious and mindful of the impact that those variances in tax levy cause to an individual property tax owner. The impact of this, looking at the average house in the Kettle Moraine School District, the average house in an 18-month period that ended in June of 2017, so January 2016 to June 2017, average house was $416,000. The median house sold was $362,000, so we used the number 400,000, although we're putting a tax calculator out there and you can do the math with the $100,000 impact. If your home is a $400,000 home, the impact would be $5.33 a month, or $64 over the 12-month period. And we're really trying to get information out. We know that 80% of our residents that we serve do not have children in our school, so getting information out is challenging. Something that other municipalities have done is said that they would put a link from your website, their website, to our website to facilitate people accessing the information. And I am happy to answer any questions that you might have, but those are a brief overview of the opportunity that we are presenting to the community.
Quick question, probably the easiest one you'll get. Are the three of you going to be at the information sessions? So the questions, that's probably going to be a semi-intimate place to get some good detailed questions
Absolutely.
asked? Okay.
I also have a question. It says 5 years, 5.975 million. What then? What after 5 years?
Well, we'll have better understanding of how schools will be funded. We will know the impact of our health insurance, and if we can figure out a better way of managing what we're doing there, or if the costs are not increasing as rapidly as we anticipate. We didn't feel we could make a good projection beyond 5 years, but something will have to happen in 5 years. It might be interesting to know 88% of the districts in the state, 81% of the districts in the state have gone to referenda for operations already, and 38% multiple times. So the funding of schools in Wisconsin needs significant attention. We have testified and advocated vigorously, appearing before the Blue Ribbon Commission this last year. It's very much unknown with the new governor what will happen. What we do know is that his plan that he had advocated as state superintendent does not address our problem. So we are not at all sure. What I heard just today was that he's looking to do his state of the budget or whatever address March 5th, which is about a month later than we'd like that to be happening. So our fiscal year starts July 1, and pretty sure we won't have any clue what's happening at that date.
I guess just as a follow-up, where did the 5.975 come from?
Do you want to take that, or?
So we do a 5-year budget projection each year, and we update it. And with that, we projected out in the first year, it's a revenue shortfall of 1.7 million, and the next year it's like 2.6 million. So it accumulates to about 30 million. And just actually, it's closer to 38 million at the end of that 5-year period. So this, we think, will be able to get us through to that point. We know we have a fund balance right now of about 12.5 million. At the end of that 5-year period, we'll be down to 9.5 million. So the 5.9 is more than enough in years 1 and 2. In year 3, we start using some of those built-up reserves. Year 4, we use some more. In year 5, we've used all of the reserves that were built up in years 1 and 2, and then dip into some of the fund balance. So it actually reduced. We'd be down about 3 million from where we are today in terms of fund balance. And the importance of that, because fund balance is just a measure at one point in time on June 30th for us, and our tax receipts come in January. So we always have a shortfall before those tax receipts to hit payroll in December. And so we do, this is the first year actually in 3 years that we've had to cash flow borrow. So our reserves are down at that level where we took out a $3 million line of credit, borrowed the money for just under 30 days, and had some interest cost this year. But as that gets to be a larger difference, then we may have to short-term borrow for a longer period of time to get us through for cash flow needs. Beth, did you get a chance to go through this one?
I did not. The chart, maybe just to show one more, of Waukesha County comparables, that figure 2 on the right panel inside, shows you the per student revenue limit authority for the districts in the the Waukesha County. And if you look at the difference, we're third from the bottom in our per student funding, and the difference between us and the top is 6.1 million a year. That's the difference based on our students. If we had their funding serving our students, we would have $6.1 million more. Or I should say we have $6.1 million less. That's the reality. If you look at the next one, the second to the top, it would be over 5 million. Nominee Falls is 4 million. So there are some really large discrepancies in the way that districts are funded. And as long as we had golden handcuffs on the teachers so they wouldn't leave because they didn't want to jeopardize a district-funded pension, there wasn't much competition. But with Act 10, and we've utilized Act 10 vigorously, aggressively, our teachers have no district pension whatsoever, and it's they call it free market. Well, a free market is great as long as you're playing on an equal playing field. It's not so great when you've built up a great system and a great reputation, and people are looking at our people as highly desirable. So we want to retain the quality of educators, retain the programming that we're offering, and certainly we have pushed expenses to our employees to balance budgets, and we don't feel that we can push any further or make any more reductions. We have the lowest in the county for the cost of internal services per student, second lowest with the cost of general administration, and when we look at school building administration, we're third lowest in the county. So we have exercised a knife every year that I've been superintendent. We've made reductions or increased class sizes or redefined things. I eliminated any administrator district pension when I stepped in back in 2006, followed by taking that from our non-represented, and when Act 10 came in, we eliminated it for our represented employees, mainly because we couldn't afford it. So I think last time I spoke to you, I might have mentioned a $31 million unfunded liability. That will be gone in another year. We have reduced that, eliminated it, paid it off, and our financial health is, you'd like to say it's much better, but with the way it's funded, we are in a very precarious situation.
I have one more question. What's the average tenure of the instructors
Right
at
now, it's
Marine?
about 12 to 14 years, right in that range.
That's an average. What's the median? Are you seeing more turnover? I would think it
Yeah,
We
is.
are
that's-
seeing more turnover.
That's what I was going.
Yes, we are.
Right, average is gonna knock you want
Right,
median.
and this is the first year that I had an employee who had accepted, well, never became an employee. A person who was going to hire accepted the position, come back and turn us down because of our health benefit. It's also the first year that I had a teacher give notice 2 days after school started because someone in Waukesha County gave them $10,000 more, and their health insurance is significantly better. And that position we only filled after Christmas. So that was a special education position, and it was a real hardship.
What's the target fund balance you try to maintain?
Try to maintain at least, try to be able to go without cash flow borrowing. So this last year we were able to get by without borrowing. This year at 12.5 million, we're borrowing to be cash flow before those tax receipts come in January 15th. So I would say 13.5 million. But I think, to me, I talk to friends, neighbors in the area, and people think in general schools are funded equally. And when you hear about the equalization or the state equalization formula that says schools are funded equally based on your property tax, well, that's just that's a really separate piece of the formula as to what we get to operate with. So revenue limits really drive the funding that we're able to utilize. And revenue limits make up 80% of our budget, which is through property taxes and state aid. So revenue limits are really the size of the pie that you get to work with, to operate with, whereas the state aid is a portion of that pie that the state will fund, and the rest is funded through property taxes. So if the state is funding 15% of that pie, then the property tax is funded through the other 85%. But when you look at some of these other districts in Waukesha County that we've been trying to compete with, and we have competed well with, under the dollars that we're able to do that with compared to what they are, it's really a discrepancy. And we've made the reductions, we've cut the post-employment benefits, and now we're starting to have a hard time competing to keep our talent. And they're plucking them off, and we need to do something about this. because the state isn't going to fix this. Even Tony Evers' plan does not include anything to equalize these revenue limits. And I don't know if you're familiar, but in 1993 is where this started. Whatever you were spending in 93 as a school district, it was divided by the number of students, and that was your base. So a conservative, newer district like Kettle Moraine at the time, 26 years ago, we were only 25 years old. We didn't have extensive programming.
Buildings were new.
Buildings were new. There wasn't a lot of facility maintenance to be done, so the costs were low at that time. And the board at the time did not inflate the budget artificially because of these revenue limits, because it was said that this was going to be a 3 to 5 year fix to property tax. Well, here we are 26 years later, and we're competing with Waukesha County on the revenue that we are. And that's kind of how we got into the situation we are. It goes back to 93. And we need some change at the state level, but they'll tell you, go ask your voters. That's what's in the law right now.
Have any of these aforementioned communities passed referendums for operating?
Hamilton just passed an operating referendum.
Hamilton just passed one. I know that Pewaukee just passed a referendum, but I'm not sure if operations was a part of it. I know New Berlin just approved a $5 million question to be on the ballot in April for their municipality, and as I said, they're already $5 million priority up per year.
Waukesha School District also, the city of Waukesha also passed one in November, but I think that was for not operations but building, am I correct?
And I know Nicolay is not in Waukesha County, and it's an extreme example, but they have passed some operating referendums to get to their level, and they're at $15,700 and some per student is what their revenue limit is, with some operating referendum in there.
I think I know just as an important point for us to take on board when we look at this as a 30-year veteran of teaching is that our homes are valued in part based on the quality of the school system. And I know that our homes in this city, my home is a small one, but it was valued partly because of the excellent schools. So I would like to support, not just that I have a daughter who graduated and is very successful in life, I think, in no small measure to the efforts of this district. So I'm not the least bit objective. And I won't apologize. But I am grateful for what you do, and I hope the best for you.
Thank you. And again, we know people talk to you if you have the right information. One of the misunderstandings is that it's for capital. It is not for any building or capital maintenance. It is not borrowing debt. Those are two misunderstandings we're running into. And if you can simply help them get the right information, we're not asking that you do it, but to give them the right information. We all know that informed elections are what we want. It helps to make strong communities, and we certainly appreciate all that you do. I do want to thank you for the partnership that we have with Lake Country Fire and Rescue. That is providing phenomenal opportunities for our students, and also the support that we get from the City of Delafield Police with their partnership at Cushing School. They are fabulous partners, and I think that the work that you do is extremely important. If we could perhaps link something on your website, that would be one way we could reach other people in the city of Delafield that may not be reading the things that I mail to them, and get the information out.
Sounds good. We'll work on that link tomorrow.
Thank you.
very much
Best
for
of
your
luck to you.
time.
Thank
If you
you.
have
Thank you.
questions, or if the public you represent have questions, send them our way. We want to be able to answer the questions.
We will. Thank you.
Can I leave the rest of the brochures in case someone wants them?
Sure. We'll put them in City Hall. Great. So we're still in citizens' comments. Are there other citizens that would like to make a comment?
I do. There's no one else.
Citizens' comments. So this is for citizens to speak.
Are you?
Representative of a property taxpayer? Get on the agenda, or should I wait for the agenda item?
I'd wait for the agenda item. To give you a new name tag, temporary.
I'm not going to give you my name.
Okay, Jackie Valdi Milstead, 816 Mill Street. My comment is about the Public Works Commission recommendation for a 27-foot road. Obviously, I object to it. From what I can read, I understand it is a recommendation, but it appears that it would clear-cut Milwaukee Street. The proposal agreed upon in November was designed by our city's engineer. And when presented, our mayor and our engineer, Mr. Court, presented data that show narrower roads are traffic calming. Their argument has merit. You can see that here in Delafield on Milwaukee Street. The wider portion of Milwaukee Street has more speeding. It takes seconds to find valid studies supporting what both the mayor and city engineer argued. Specifically, narrower roads are safer. People move more cautiously along them. Wider roads are not safer, especially not in residential areas. Dozens of studies show this logically. That is why interstates are wide. I realize that this is a recommendation. However, the arguments cited, namely the convenience for snow removal or safety, don't really add up. I have been on the Common Council for 6 years, and I have had representing the folks on Milwaukee Street, and I've had exactly no calls or complaints about snow removal issues. We have ditches. Big rigs can go up Main Street. The argument for continuity could well be made for leaving that road narrow. That continuity has functioned well for the city for decades. Many of the trees that have existed on that same street have been there for centuries, especially a 276-year-old champion oak at 1342 Milwaukee Street. Continuity concerns would suggest that it be allowed to continue. Everyone loses with this change proposed: the trees, the lake, as well as the property values of the homes on Milwaukee Street. Studies show mature trees add value, about 20% to the property values. Those property values do benefit the homeowners, but also the city in the form of tax revenue. I'm sure the intentions of the Public Works were good. I would hope as much. But you know what they say about good intentions. I have lost more sleep on this issue than you can well imagine. I have spent years working on all sides of the issue. I have talked to every citizen along that street on multiple occasions. Last fall, I thought the city had come to a conclusion and a compromise. I am sick to death with fear that it will all be clear-cut for the love of curb and gutter and a specious claim for safety. I am very tired. I feel like Milwaukee Street is constantly under attack. All citizens should rest assured that when the city agrees to a plan, as we did, it is honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments?
Hi, I'm Dave Lechtenberg, 370 Arlington Street, and we had moved here a number of years ago because of the quality and quaintness of the city of Delafield. Lots of trees, the lakes, and what have you. I'm also took natural resources as well, so I love the trees around here. I hate to see this. As you can tell, I'm against the widening of Milwaukee Street. I love the plan. I read the plan as was passed back in November, and while there are a few quirks I do not agree with, it is a compromise, as Jackie said. So I do appreciate that, and time spent on study and discussion of it, and the motion that it was passed. I do disagree with the DPW's recommendation that it be opened back up again and widened. So I'm very against that. The culverts work just fine, and Milwaukee Street has been working just fine. A few potholes here and there. What will repavement do with that? Solve the problem. So I hate what they did with Genesee Street. And it is what it is. But it's functional. But again, Genesee Street was widened, the speed increased, the traffic. I noticed there is a speed monitor down at the bottom of the hill. How many people go past that monitor and with above speeding, going faster than the speed limit is. So I'm afraid that thing is going to happen. Same thing is going to happen with Milwaukee Street. I love the quaintness, the smallness, the country feel when you're driving on that street, and I hate to see that missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Last call for citizens' comments. Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. All right, we will move on to committee reports. 5A licenses.
We have 2 temporary Class B retailers licensed, one for St. Joan of Arc Parish for their Mardi Gras fundraiser on March 2nd, and one for Christ the King Lutheran Church for their Family Promise Valentine Swing Dance on February 16th. I'm looking for a motion to either approve one at a time or both of them together.
I'll make a motion.
For both?
Got Jim first.
Sure.
Second
both.
by Kevin.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Sound like 2 good times. I'd try to go. All right, 5B, Planning Commission. Mr. Eicher.
All right, these should be brief, but if you have any questions, ask. The first one is easy. You've seen the sign, probably. It's in. This is just kind of taking care of something that has been approved through different levels, and we're here tonight to say it's okay. This is the amendment of the conditional use for the sign and location at St. John's Chrysostom Church. So I'll make a motion to approve it as is.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And the next 2 are very much related. We've gone through the different phases of approval at the Plan Commission for the CSM for the buildings, as well as the design and all that stuff. And this is to finalize the developers agreement and the stormwater maintenance agreement for the building on Kettle Court East. So I'll make a motion to approve the developers agreement for 3884 Kettle Court East.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Likewise, I'll make a motion to approve the stormwater maintenance agreement for the building on 3884 Kettle Court East.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And that is it. I believe we have a meeting at the end of the month. So if you have any questions, show up there.
Great, thank you. 5C, Lake Welfare Committee. Mr. Barron.
We had a meeting, and there's a number of things on the agenda there that are just kind of carryover, so there wasn't anything really momentous. But I would like to highlight that the DNR, or the sewer pack study on the lake and the watershed is still out there. And it's so big that we are having a difficult time putting our hands on it. But at some point, we need to comment on it and kind of close it out. So if there are citizens interested in that thing, we would love to hear feedback. It's 500 pages long, and it's on the website. But we will be getting to it. So that's what I'd like to highlight.
Great, thank you. 5D, Park and Rec Commission. Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting, no report.
5E, Public Works Committee. Mr. Dean.
Couple things first before I get to the agenda items, just to report. At the January 16th meeting, the Plan Commission recommended to the Plan Commission that we consider a roundabout as the preferred option at the intersection of Golf Road and Golf Court. And second, the Plan Commission approved the conceptual plan for the underground stormwater management for the new restaurant and retail at Golf Court and recommend to Plan Commission. In your agenda, you'll notice that we have a recommendation by the Plan Commission to redesign Milwaukee Street because of public concerns about the proposed width of only 9.5 feet travel lanes. The Public Works Committee recommended that the design should be consistent with the westerly portion of Milwaukee Street that was paved in 2013 because that is 10.5 feet. So Tom, could you kind of bring us up to date as to why it came to the or the Public Works Commission at that time? Some people were confused about that.
Yeah, it's just common practice that the city's always done, that whatever road projects the Common Council approves as part of the budget, that then gets designed by the city engineer. We like to bid those projects out in February. So the typical schedule is those projects go to the Public Works Committee for review of the plans, a preliminary review in January, followed by a final review and approval to go out for bidding in February.
So that's why it came before us on the 16th and why we looked at it. And several members of the plan or the Public Works Committee who are experts in their field of traffic safety just were concerned that 9.5 feet was too narrow for those 2 lanes. And so that's why the discussion ensued and recommendation was made to Plan Commission again, or to the Common Council. It is a recommendation. You can choose to act on that, leave things as they are, or you can look at other compromises. And I don't know, is this time when we should bring in Mike's and point out what Mike put in the package?
I'd like to just get some sense from the council members, because if we do choose to leave it just the way it is, then no action is required.
Correct.
So the one thing, I really appreciate Mike Court's letter. There's a lot of work went into that. And I know he's an engineer like the engineers on the committee, and I appreciate that they see things from their standpoint. They're trying to be consistent citywide with a long-term policy of getting some of these through streets to a certain standard. And when we incorporate them into our plans, you sometimes get objections. And I mean, I will say as a public official, I try to support our subcommittees. So it's pretty rare that I would want to overturn them or ignore them. In Mike's letter, what I like is he tried to collect some data on the whole traffic calming, but the counter argument was that it creates a situation with accidents. And so he clearly, if people read it, laid out that we've not really had a problem there. I certainly hear the language regarding, big boats passing each other. I can see that. I have a pontoon boat and it goes right down that street, so I understand that. But in the end, after all this work, we were adding to pavement, and we were adding, without cutting the trees. And I also appreciate, and this was in a meeting where I was just at the staff, the only person there with the mayor and Mike, even trying to identify to avoid replacing utility poles, because it costs utilities a lot of money. It's delaying, and when they replace them, they cut canopies and they move them where people don't like to see them. Well, even that, we came down to the conclusion that the incremental change as proposed really didn't change where cars were driving, and we're still picking up pavement. And so I support the way the plan was drawn and submitted to Public Works. But I would, in his letter, he has one suggestion that we could take a step towards them. And it's only $4,500 more, and that would be to add 6 inches of pavement out of the gravel on each side, and then put the lanes at 10 feet so it gets closer. And I will note on all the studies that he attached, 10 feet is one of the standards. So it doesn't have to be wider, but that was one of the safe widths. So I think for $4,500 we could modify this project. That would be my motion. And just follow that one paragraph in there that adds 6 inches to each side of the pavement, taking it out of the gravel, and with that, we should bid it as is.
I would second that motion.
So, and typically, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but for a number change like what is in the motion of $4,500, is typically something that could be made up within the contingency of a project that is of this value.
Yeah, so this is a capital project, and sometime in April or May, Marie and I will be coming to the council for what we need to borrow for our capital projects, and this $4,500 will get added on to that amount.
And you don't know, it's a bid. We don't know exactly.
Correct.
This is just an estimate on square footage, but
By the time we come for approval of borrowing, we'll have a actual contract rather than.
What people should realize from a public perspective, this is the best time of year to bid. That's when these guys have time, and they make their plans. And as the bids are awarded, there's less and less capacity in the industry, and so prices go up. So the city is trying to be as active to save as much money as possible. So that's why I'd like to see this keep moving right now.
So this motion is keeping the design the same, essentially the same, but what we're doing is we're converting some gravel to blacktop, and we're getting 10-foot lanes instead of 2 9-foot lanes, 9.5-foot lanes.
We're getting 10 foot instead of the 9.5.
Right,
But we
okay.
still achieve a 3-foot snow holding zone on each side.
And I totally appreciate everything that Public Works put into it too,
Yeah.
because it wasn't flippant on their part either. I think it'd be malpractice of them not to put what they think in their best
And that's what they're really doing here.
opinion is the right thing to do, and this is wrought with compromise, and I think we arrived at a good one, and I'm all for it. And I'd like to add to, Jackie, you mentioned property values being enhanced by trees. Walkability is a huge value add to property values, and this increases that as well. So.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
No further report.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to 5F, Delafield Commission. Mr. Maples.
No meeting, no report.
5G, Police Commission. Mr. Crickham.
No meeting, no report.
Moving right along. 5H, Library Board. Ms. Valdi.
We did meet, and the minutes have not been posted yet, but I do have one thing I wanted to mention is that our amazing library director, Stephanie Ramirez, has noted that we don't have a updated bylaws. They haven't been, the library bylaws have not been updated for, well, let's just say more than 20 years. And so somebody, that would be me, volunteered to work with her this summer when I'm off school to maybe update the bylaws. It was kind of cool. She had the old ones. You could see they'd been done on a typewriter. And yeah, it was kind of a kick. So we all had a good chuckle over that. And but that is the one thing. And I'm sure our minutes will be posted. We just met last week. So.
Yeah, last year I went to a few meetings and I know they were updating. It must have been the library rules.
Yes.
That they were updating, not
that was the
bylaws.
library's policies and function.
Okay.
Sort of like, like how you can conduct yourself in the library and whether or not someone, that sort of thing. We're talking about the bylaws of the library committee.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah, it was
kind of. I was just making sure it was clear in my mind too. But is that it for the report?
That is it from me.
Great, thank you. Then we're going to go on to 5I, Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Maples.
No meeting, no report.
5J, Promotion and Tourism Commission, Mr. Barron again.
We had a meeting. We have settled on a logo for the Tourism Commission. It's not here, and I'm reading from minutes that were drafted, and they're not posted on any website. They sent them to me, so it does have the 3 sailboats. It does not quite look. It doesn't look like a Chamber of Commerce. So when you're going to see a lot of places where they're both supporting things, they'll look good. The Tourism Commission also approved paying their meeting fees out of the tourism budget. That was a little catch, I think, when you were reviewing costs for next year, so we can change that. And everything else is going fairly well. The meeting only lasted about 45 minutes, which was a record, because I think everything is pretty well organized.
Great. Thank you much. We'll move on to 5K, Lake Country Fire and Commission. That's the mayor. No meeting, no report. 5L, Lake Country Fire Board. Mr. Crickham again.
Yes, we did have a meeting. It was not a very long meeting, but a couple of things to bring back to you. We do have our new fire truck has arrived.
That's a nice, big, shiny new toy.
I tell you what, it's
it
one
pretty?
awesome piece of high-tech machinery. It's narrower, so it should be able to get it up and down some of the driveways and some of the narrower roads with much more ease than the current truck. Has a 1,000-gallon water tank, which is heated. So in days like this, if they're out there putting the fire, we don't have to worry about freezing lines anymore. Has a 30-gallon foam tank on it, so this would come handy for people that live next to the railroad tracks, for instance, something like that where we would have to foam. It also has the low volume, high pressure system on it, which we gave you the demonstration before. In fact, I believe it was the first week that they had a car fire on the expressway on the interstate, and when they got there using just that, it was put out in less than a minute.
Cool.
With less than 10 gallons of water, which makes cleanup on the highway a whole lot nicer too, and much more friendly to the economy, or to the
environment.
Thank you. Another nice thing that it has is the seats. All four of the seats inside have built-in headrests. If you've ever been inside of a fire truck during the sirens and whatnot, it has built-in headrests so they can communicate with each other with a plan of action and listen to the radio as they're going. So it's high-tech as far as it has a medicine cabinet, a refrigerated medicine cabinet inside. So if there is need for medical attention and the ambulance isn't there, chances are one of the paramedics is also a firefighter, so they'll be able to jump in and take care of a patient before the ambulance arrives. So got to tell you, you're pretty well protected in the Lake Country Fire community. And the sweetest thing about this all is the fire truck that it's replacing is coming back to the city of Delafield for sale. So we will finally be getting some money back for a piece of apparatus that's sold, since this is the first time since Lake Country Fire and Rescue's merged that we've actually had something come back to the city that will be able to get some money back.
Yay.
So
It'll help the operating budget.
yeah, we did have much larger call volume. With that came higher operating expenses, but with that also came revenue increase. We got more revenue, but our payroll had a shortfall. We'll be coming back to you with those dollars probably next month. You'll be getting a check. You'll be writing a check. It's going to be, it's going to be bookkeeping more so than anything, I believe. So, anything else, Matt?
No, covered it.
Great, thank you. Okay, 5M, Tree Board, Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting, no report.
Okay.
Thank you.
5N, Deer Management Committee, Mr. Dean again.
Okay, we have had over 100 hunters apply for the right to hunt on the city stands and use our city nuisance permits. Of those 120, 109 were approved. Those 109 applicants applied for 309 hunting opportunities, hunting appointments, and booked those appointments with 79 cancellations. So just to give you a summary of where most of that activity took, 124 hunting appointments were at the Del Hart brush drop-off area. 54 appointments were conducted at the Lois Jensen West stand, 56 at the Lois Jensen East stand, and 78 appointments at Oakwood. We've been notified of 43 deer that have been harvested using both our city nuisance tags and private owners in Delafield. There are probably more, but again, private owners aren't required to report to me any harvesting. So those are just from the numbers that that people have reported to me. And while we consider this a pretty good success for our first year trying this in the bow hunting, it still falls short of making a significant impact in what we want to do in the deer population. So the committee may have some recommendations as we go forward. One, we want to increase the number of potential city stands for the fall hunting season starting September 15, 2019, and look for more locations because we know we can fill them with a number of hunters. Actually, with 109 people applying for only 4 stands, we could actually use a lot more stands and have more locations. So we want to increase the number of stands. We want to purchase 3 tower stands that can be placed in select locations that have an abundance of deer but not adequate cover. The stands we have now are what are just ladder stands that lean against the tree. So we had to be in areas where we had tree coverage. There are other areas within the city where there's open areas where the deer travel, and if we put up, as I see in the picture I put here, these tower stands, I think we'll be able to make a significant impact. For example, we'd still have a tower stand over on Delhart, but about 100 yards to the south in the open area where the city has our buildings, there's a lot of deer. We put a tower stand up there and still have a couple hunters in the area. So that's what we're looking for. We do want to establish, we thought about it this year, but we want to wait. Now we think we're capable of establishing a landowner and hunter matching program to promote more bow hunting at private locations. We've had several people come to us and ask us for that, landowners, that they wanted to match with hunters. And then approve the sharpshooter program for February of 2019. So a motion was made by Dennis that we reappropriate some of our money from the approved 2019 budget for the Deer Management Committee so that we can spend the money on the sharpshooter program and new deer stands. So I'd like to make a motion that the Common Council grant the Deer Management Committee the authority to designate portion of the approved 2019 deer management budget, $8,000 for the sharpshooter program for this year, and $3,000 for tower stands. The Deer Management Committee chairperson and city administrator would select then the vendors from the submitted bids.
I'll second it.
Just a question, are you talking about purchasing the deer stands in this picture?
Correct.
And how many would we get for 3,000?
We can get at least, when you talk about those stands, the enclosure itself is about 600, and then the steel structure to raise them is another several hundred, so we could get 3 to 4
Okay.
for our $3,000, depending on how well I can negotiate.
I like it.
And this money is already in the budget, right?
Yeah, we're just
moving
shifting the pie. We're not adding any new pie.
Okay.
And just to add, during discussion, we've received 3 bids now from state-approved, DNR-approved sharpshooters. We've been able to go from starting at about 250 per deer down to less than 150 per deer.
Nice.
So we should,
Good.
our goal is to take out 40 to 50. And then with what we have with the program, our goal is that we end up taking over 100 between the 2 programs, which obviously is a lot more than what did we take out last year, 20 total?
Yep.
The sharpshooter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
an increase of about 80 is what
in the
we're
past, we've been at 200 a deer.
Great. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstention passes. Thank you.
Thank you, no other report.
Okay, no unfinished business. Mayor's report. Discussion and action on the resignation of Jeff Miller from the Planning Commission.
So move.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Passes. Discussion and action on the recommendation to appoint Robert Wheeler to the Planning Commission for a term ending April 2020. Wheeler to attend January Planning Commission meeting.
Also move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And I would like to thank Jeff Miller for his service. He resigned from the commission, which is what created the opening. But it's people like Jeff that step forward to help us spend the time to make some of these decisions and get good citizens' input for better outcomes. So, Jeff, thank you for your service to the city. And then I also wanted to mention, I wanted to thank Michelle, Mike back there, and Tom for working out the details for getting the YouTube video up. We ran into some obstacles we weren't initially aware of, like the bandwidth at City Hall wasn't sufficient. And thanks to their negotiations with the cable company, we actually increased our bandwidth and lowered our monthly cost.
Woohoo! Well done.
So then we overcame some audio issues, and hopefully tonight it's all running well. So thank you for that, Michelle.
I'm watching it right now. I have a question. I see we're seeing us on video. Are the people on YouTube able then to see what we see on the screen, or are they only watching the camera?
Whatever you see on the YouTube channel is what they're seeing at home. They can bring up the agenda side by side with the video if they want to do that.
Okay. Good.
If you have any suggestions for improvement, tonight's our trial night, right? So let us know.
Our viewership has increased by 33% while we're
How many do we have?
from 2 to 3.
I'm one of the three. She just leaned over.
I'm going to jump on now, though.
Where do I find that?
Spread the word so we can get more viewers.
Go to YouTube.
Oh, it's in your door.
Yeah, I don't need the close-up. I see
Like
what he's
it.
doing right now.
Can you make us look young? We need
All right, so,
lighting.
all right, so now we're going to move on to 8. A motion to convene into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating to the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or the conducting of other special public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically negotiations with Delafield LLC regarding a developer contribution toward the contribution of traffic improvements on Gulf Road. And I just want to remind everyone that the closed session is to discuss those items. You may have other questions about the project and so forth that the Planning Commission has deliberated. Let's try to make sure we keep those back in the open session and keep those out of the closed session. We want all those to be in the public and only talk in closed session about the things that are listed.
Well, I'll make the motion to go to closed session.
I'll second.
I need a roll call vote. Jeff Crickon.
Aye.
Jim Barron.
Aye.
Jackie Valdi.
Aye.
Wayne Dean.
Aye.
Matt Grimmer.
Aye.
Kevin Maples.
Aye.
Tim Eicher.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're in closed session. So we need All right, welcome back. We're out of closed session and we're coming back to make open session. So can I get a motion to go back into open session, please?
Also move.
I'll second.
Got the second?
Okay, need a roll call vote. Jeff Crickon.
Aye.
Jim Barron.
Aye.
Jackie Valdi.
Aye.
Wayne Dean.
Aye.
Matt Grimmer.
Aye.
Kevin Maples.
Aye.
Tim Eicher.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to 10A, new business, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2019-02, a resolution directing public of referendum question regarding authorization to enter into a public works contract for reconstruction and improvement of Gulf Road. Brian, if you'd like to come up and speak now, this would be a time. Or you don't have to, it's up to you.
I don't have anything to say.
So do you need a motion?
No, I don't think we have any questions, so.
You need a
This-
motion?
This is the only thing we have on the agenda regarding the contribution, if that's what you wanted to, earlier, like I said, during the open session, so I don't know if you have any comments at all or not on any of this.
Twist his arm.
I can come up with something to say. Good evening. I'm attorney Brian Randall of Davis and Keelthau, 111 East Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, representing Delasota LLC, which is one of the property owners in the Gulf Road Golf Court area and is a applicant to develop its site that is going through the Plan Commission right now. I paused with the question about do I want to speak or what do I have to say, because I'm mindful that you had a closed session item and there was a discussion about contribution to do a public works project. And as I understand these city ordinances, the requirements here in Delafield are that public works projects over $1 million must go to a referendum, and there is an opportunity to put that on the ballot in April. I've had the opportunity to review the referendum text that was in the packet, and I don't have any questions about that. I did receive some documentation from the city attorney about, I think it was a memorandum of understanding, was the document title with respect to my client's contribution amount. We're not in a position to accept that document as written. I think there were a couple of contradictory provisions in it, but certainly something that I can work through with the city attorney. And I would defer to the full council as far as the ability to, I'm not in a position to agree to that document as presented or the full dollar amount, but I can certainly answer questions or discuss further as may be appropriate. I can also say that we had the opportunity to meet with the city administrator, the city attorney, the city planner, city engineer, and the mayor last week to discuss that, and we are interested in moving forward, and we have a very, I think, high level, more than our reasonable share on the table to go forward with that project that I recognize the Public Works Committee has thoroughly reviewed and has recommended a roundabout. And it's a rather expensive project, but one that the city has looked at for many years, and so for our contribution amount, we are prepared to step up and assist with that project. Not the least of which, once our site is developed, there will be great incremental tax value that will accrue to the full tax base.
Great, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't have any questions, Jeff.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
So do you need a motion to move the referendum?
Yes, and I'd like you to maybe ask some questions about the referendum and why we're having the referendum, so that I just don't like coming out of a closed session without discussing stuff.
Well, maybe, Mayor, I could just lay out the requirements. Under section 3.14 of the municipal code, and I've often commented that it's a model of clarity, probably the same as my contradictory contract provisions, but it talks about, it requires that wherever the city is involved in a municipally financed project, it doesn't simply say contract, it says project, that exceeds $1 million, it has to go to referendum. We've had a lot of discussions in the past about that, but the word project suggests it's more than just the cost of the contract, but here we have design cost, land acquisition costs, and so on. The city engineer has put together an estimate of the cost, which would be the modification of Gulf Road, which is going to include, if it goes ahead as discussed, some changes in, I think it's going to be right turn only out of the shopping center at the top, what we call the Starbucks shopping center. And it would go down, and there would be a modification on the entrance of where you go into the Kohl's store, and there would be a roundabout where you would go off where Chick-fil-A is being proposed, and then it would be a single turn roundabout, or single lane roundabout. And then all of that, including land acquisition costs, is estimated at $1.3 million. Design, land acquisition, construction, including contingencies. So that would require a referendum. And so the issue, the question that you have before you tonight is whether is to adopt a motion that would authorize the city clerk to put the referendum question on the ballot in April, that would authorize the city to proceed with that, with a public works contract for that project. It has to be done at this point to get on the April ballot from a timing standpoint.
And the due date, I mean, the last day we could do it is tomorrow.
Is tomorrow. So it has to get approved tonight. Now, it's important to recognize or to note that the referendum question does specifically state that even though it's a $1.3 million project, it says that the cost would be reimbursed the city through contributions by the developer, and Mr. Randall just spoke of that, as well as special assessments against the benefiting property owners. So in other words, the way the referendum is worded is that this would be the project cost, but the cost would be recovered by benefited property owners, the businesses along that area, as well as contributions from the developers. And we would go through a special assessment process, assuming the referendum is approved, and that involve public hearings and so on. So that's the background.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to pass Resolution 2019-02, which is the referenda question.
Second.
All right, do I have a second? Jeff? All right, any discussion?
Yeah, just to clarify, so the catalyst for this project is the development of the restaurant and retail building being proposed at the end of Gulf Court, right?
At the end of Gulf Court, next to Holiday Inn, and they are an applicant that's bringing in significant traffic volumes to that location.
Right. And we arrived at what's being proposed by who, like who was involved? I mean, I know our city engineer were there engineers or other people involved, like other property owners that are in the area? Did they have people look at this as well?
Tom?
Yeah, involvement on this started back in a study that was done from 2009 to 2011. At that time, the city hired an engineering firm, Grafe, to do a feasibility study of the corridor. A roundabout was recommended at that time, but it was decided to hold off on construction until the final lot in the development was proposed for development, which is occurring now. So as Tim indicated, that development is triggering the traffic improvement, and the applicant, their traffic study recommended a traffic signal, and that was a significant preference of theirs, and so we went through an extensive study at this time where the city engineer reviewed it thoroughly. The applicant's engineer did a significant review, and even one of the adjacent property owners, they hired an independent engineer to do an independent analysis, and they came up with the roundabout being the best solution. So that went before the Public Works Committee, and that is their recommendation to move forward with the roundabout. The city has met with 3 of the more significant traffic generating properties in the corridor, made them aware of the project, let them know that the project is going to be paid for by developer contribution and the balance would be special assessed against the benefited property owners along that segment of Gulf Road from Highway 83 to the municipal boundary, and that those assessments would be based on traffic generation of the individual businesses.
Okay, so some of the basis of my, thanks. Some of the basis of my question is the fact that if there was some sleepy business that went in there that was like an art studio or just a design shop or something where they'd have 10 employees coming in and 10 employees leaving, that catalyst really wouldn't exist. I mean, we wouldn't have the traffic generated to really create this issue at that intersection to go through all this, right? I mean, that's my impression anyway. And so to facilitate what is being asked to be put there, we're going through these road improvements and assessing it to that new business as well as all the businesses around it that will get other benefits based on the overall design of the project, right?
Correct.
And so my district living on the west side of the lake, their contribution is going to be zero, according to the referendum.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I just want to.
The other comment is that if ever, it's going to need number approval, referendum approval, plan commission approval, development, agreement with the developer, special assessments. But if everything fell into place, this project, there's a timeline where it could be completed by the end of August or September of this year, if everything fell into place.
And I'll add that, you know, this is all, this actual development happening is contingent on approval of the Planning Commission. So there's issues and items that still need to be addressed by the applicant that will be reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they will deliberate and make their decision. But that's a critical part to this process as well.
So the one point I want to make that kind of pick up, the whole cost is borne by that quadrant. And our role here is just kind of organizing the world for them over there. And I don't know what part is developer share versus the assessment share, but our view is that 100% of the benefit really just resides right where we're going to assess it. And I think it's a good role for the city to play, because without us organizing it, it's all incremental little pieces, and it never really gets dealt with. And I think when this thing is done, it will increase the comfort of folks that want to shop on that corner, and I think all the businesses are going to benefit from it. But I also want to say, if we put this on the ballot in April, you know, I'd like to say emphatically, please vote for it, because this really moves us forward as a city and finishes off that corner. And that's my comment.
And I'll reiterate, the Public Works has spent a lot of time already looking at this and looking at all the other options. And the Public Works felt that the roundabout was the best alternative there for not only solving traffic problems there, no matter what goes in on Kettle Court, but also solving some of the traffic problems further up on Gulf Road up there by the, by the Starbucks. So we have looked at this. People have spent a lot of time, different engineers, and I agree with Jim. It is a win-win for everybody without spending a lot of money from the city, the residents. It's businesses are going to support it, and they get in return they get a benefit.
Right. And that's a good point, and I want to thank the committee. Some of them were doing conference calls and meetings over the Christmas holiday to keep this on track, and really appreciate those committee members that spent the time to do the hard work on this.
We get a lot of citizen input on that committee for a low price.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to 10B, discussion possible action regarding a proposed 2019 engineering contract for SEH, including compensation, schedule, and transitioning to a lump sum fee of $1,200 per month per Mike Court's time as city engineer on a defined scope of city tasks. Mr. Hafner.
Yeah, as indicated, there's two things that are being accomplished by this proposed contract amendment. One would be the annual increase of key personnel is accomplished in there, but more significantly is a proposal to transition our city engineer's time from an hourly basis to a lump sum basis based on a defined scope of services that he commonly provides for the city. With that being said, Mike Court is in the audience tonight and would welcome any questions that you have of him.
Or you can make a motion.
I don't want to make all the motions.
Baron.
It used to be you.
I know.
Well, I would like to just say that I think Mike Court does a really stellar job for the city. He knows our city so well, and I think he really cares. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for many years and having casual conversations outside council chambers, and he actually is a very thoughtful person. And so my only question to Mike is this something that you're comfortable with? I don't know if that matters, but because it's a city thing, but I'd like to know that much. So.
It matters as long as the price is right.
Thank you. And I do like working with the city. And
Mostly.
I hopefully consider me as part of the team. This is definitely, a proposal that kind of transitions what I struggle with as far as my normal billing rate to the discounted billing rate. So if we can do this, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2019 engineering contract for SEH for Mike Court.
I'll second. Oh.
Mike, can I ask you a
Seconds.
question? It's just so, do you know if SEH is still contracted with Sandler up in Minneapolis?
I don't know. I can check.
I think I'll need to recuse myself from the vote for that reason. My company has a contract in Minneapolis. And
Better safe than sorry on those.
I'll stay out of it.
All right.
I'm sorry, I missed a second. Did you get the
I
second?
have Baldi as a second. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I second it.
Yeah, you seconded.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for all you do, and you are part of the team.
You are.
An appreciated part of the
It would be
team.
really sad if you weren't.
All right, 10C, discussion of possible action regarding the Delafield tree brochure as requested by Alderman Valdi.
Yes, if we can scroll to page 77 on this, if you go to 77, the council members want to go, you can take a look at prototype that I made, and I know it's not perfect. This is something that had its genesis back in before Kent was mayor with Michelle Dio and with the person who was on Tree Board and Parks and Rec, Chris Smith at the time, so it goes back a ways. The idea was to simply create kind of a guidepost into things the city is already doing. We already have a tree fund. We encourage people to plant street trees. We have a city forester. We encourage a lot of the things. The discussion has been amongst a lot of the folks who live in the city and are concerned and interested in this, maintaining the tree canopy, language that all exists in our comprehensive plan and in our city's codes, might be embraced by members of the public if it's in a bit of a more user-friendly format. And so it's nothing revolutionary in terms of policy or practice or anything beyond so much as if you're looking at page 77, the far right panel would be the front of a brochure. The middle obviously would be the back, and then the left side would be on the inside if you folded it. Then on page 78, it opens up into maybe the next one. Yep, thank you. So that it shows sort of like a little bit about our Tree City USA policy and considering tree maintenance, but just a way for citizens to connect to it. They're just asking this to be considered by the council. I have nothing else, I have researched nothing beyond what is already in our own policies and what our practice is as a city, and to make this something accessible. My idea would be to print these, to put them in public access points, for instance, in our library would be one. And that's it. It's a simple idea to start. So I wanted to...
Can we print them on a photocopier? Or do you have to?
Well, you could.
I don't know if we have a color photocopier.
I mean, I could print this in my, my high schools, but it might not come out as well, and there might be bulk. I could research what it could cost. I don't know how many we would really need, and that's something.
I'm just thinking maybe we should print 100 of them and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And the tree board had, I mean, you did wonderful work here. The tree board just thought that.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think you should print them out in color. The tree board thought that the resource, as ubiquitous as the internet is, there's that resource out there with either, on the internet or whoever's planting your tree or bringing it to you. But this is a great piece of work, and yeah.
So money for this would come out of the tree fund that we have?
I didn't make that motion.
No, that's what I'm asking. We have money in the
Is that
tree
your
fund, I
motion?
guess.
Is that your motion?
Well, I was going to.
Well, why don't we direct Jackie to get an estimate on the costs, the lowest cost?
Why don't I
option
see
is
what printing something
Yeah.
like this will
Yeah.
cost, and then I'll bring it back?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Just to be totally honest, our city clerk has us all on a copy budget, I mean, we have a limit.
Cards,
I mean, we
Let's get
could
an
shut off.
I'll support taking
I'll bring
care
her
of the tree
flowers,
fund.
yeah. Honestly, I would pay for this. Out of pocket, I just think it's something the city should do. And again, it's nothing outside of what we're already doing. It's just putting it in a user-friendly way where you can pick it up, take it home, and go, oh, cool. Because a lot of people don't, or they get lost on the internet, and so, yeah. That's it.
Are we all okay to, under the trees section of the website, to put a link that includes this PDF that people could print off on their own? Too? I mean, just in addition to?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think,
Does
I mean,
anybody on
that's
the
not hard to
council-
do.
Yeah,
create a
does anybody on
PDF.
the council think that's not a good idea?
I would play with, especially page 77, the Arbor Day Foundation graphic is not clear. So I would want to
Give us your
play with
final
this.
version, and we'll set it up
Okay.
as a document under the tree board on the website.
So Jackie, bring this back on the agenda in February?
I can't, it's my husband's
That's
birthday.
right. So March.
So
Bring 'em
March.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to print it on recycled paper, right? It's a good
That'd be
idea.
100% post-consumer. Heck yeah.
All right, good idea.
I won't research it any other way.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to 10D, discussion of possible action on Resolution 2019-01, a resolution regarding closing the dark store loophole and stopping the tax burden shift.
Yeah, this was an issue brought to my attention by both the mayor and Alderman Eicher. We passed a similar resolution in January of 2017, but both Kent and Tim thought with the new governor taking office, it would be good to send another reminder to our elected officials on the city's stance, where we would like to see our legislators close the dark store loophole and assess these stores appropriately.
I'll move to, is that what you need?
Yeah, and we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-01.
I will move to approve the resolution as stated.
Second. Great discussion. Tim, did you want to add any comments?
No, it's a big deal.
Huge.
It's shifting tax burden from establishments that are being judged the same way we are as residential property owners. And they have a way around the rules that most homeowners don't. And it's moving tax burden from retail establishments back onto private property owners, and it's not the spirit of the law. I think it's high time that we get our legislators in Madison to change it.
Yeah,
Many other states have.
Yes. And it's a burden on the city. I mean, their tax, we keep losing in court almost every single time. I mean, I don't know that we've won any. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we've settled some, but it's becoming automatic for these businesses, and that tax revenue is just going lower and lower and lower every year like clockwork. And assuming the city spends exactly the same amount of money, that has to shift to the residential property owner. It has to shift. So it's really important that our legislatures work on this. I know I talk to them every opportunity I get. I just talked to our last week at the Quick Trip Open, about this subject, and it just won't give up on it. But so it's one I'm passionate about for sure. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. 11A, City Administrator Report.
Yeah, wanted to update the council on a meeting we had last week where we're actually looking into solar energy, and we had a meeting with a We Energy representative to talk about different options. And it just so happens that the Wisconsin Public Service Commission just in December approved a new plan that We Energies is making available to organizations. And what they're doing is We Energy is looking to get get out of the business of coal plants, and they're looking at other types of plants. And so they need additional generation capacity. And one way they're looking at doing it is small scale solar installations that would feed into their system. And so this pilot project that they have, organizations can participate up to the firm energy load that they utilize, and they can, it's basically a lease where organizations lease space to We Energies, whether it be rooftop or land space, and then We Energies pays for all of the installation, all of the maintenance, and all of the takedown and disposal of the site at the end of the lease, and the organization just receives a monthly lease payment from We Energies.
We're turning over every stone to find ways to get new revenue to help with our operating budget. And this is one of them.
Based on the amount of load that the city uses, we couldn't quite provide enough solar panel space if we looked at putting panels on top of this building, the public service building, and the public works building.
Mm-hmm.
We'd come close. Our firm load is 280 kilowatts, and we'd probably accomplish somewhere in the 200 to 250 kilowatts with that space. But we got to thinking kind of outside the box a little bit. And I've talked to Scott Luxek at Delhart, and I've talked to David Cox, administrator at the Village of Heartland, and we're proposing a solution where all three of these organizations could participate. We would all receive a lease payment based on our individual loads, but to locate all the solar panels on excess property that Delhart owns. We Energies is looking into some legal implications about Heartland locating their solar panels in a different municipality from where they are, but preliminarily they thought since the land is half owned by Heartland, half owned by Delafield, that it would likely work. But it's an option that we're pursuing. And the city's lease payment that we would receive if we accomplish the full 280 kilowatts of generation would be approximately $12,000 a year.
It's so much bigger than that. The money's great. but it's a sustainability thing. It's just smart on multiple levels. Love it.
Yeah, so We Energies is looking into the legalities with complying with their program right now. Once they get word back to us and Heartland and Delhart, then the intention would be to put together proposed lease language that each of the three entities would take to their individual commission, council, board. So, any other questions on that?
So when they're on our roof, does it interfere with long-term maintenance?
If they're on our roof.
So if we
So
go
you're
on,
thinking they're all going on
yeah,
land?
if we can all put ours on Delhart, then that
Then
would
it's
eliminate the
Oh,
roof
that's really sweet.
issue.
Yeah, okay.
But to answer your question, what was the question about the roof?
Well, if you had them installed here, then you have problems with the roof, but you got the panels,
Great
Right.
question.
you know.
Right.
So
That'd be my one concern.
Yep.
So actually, when they're installed on the ground, it does require a fairly deep foundation for the support of them because they tilt the panels at a much steeper slope, and it becomes kind of a sail and a significant wind load. But on a roof installation, they're only tilted at 5 degrees, and believe it or not, the
Held down with cinder blocks.
The mounting is, they're held down by cinder blocks, and so
love
if you need to work on the roof,
They can
it's a
move.
case of moving them temporarily and then moving them back into place.
That's very interesting.
Look at the deer out of Delhart for that.
Oh, well, I mean, that is an issue. I mean, that is an issue.
Don't need any more of these stands. You can just hide behind solar panels.
Yeah.
Don't be shooting the solar panels.
That's all I have for a report this evening.
Thank you, that's wonderful.
Okay, 11B, the clerk.
Discussion and action on the voucher list for this evening. First and second, please.
I move to approve the voucher list.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
The second item I have is just a reminder that there's no election for February in the city of Delafield. Our next election will be on April 2nd. Thank you.
And are there any requests for future agenda items from the council? Seeing none, move on to 12 correspondence. Refer you to those. Seeing no other business, we are now adjourned. Thank you very much. Bye, YouTube crowd, cable crowd. I'll do that one time.
Mike says you're not supposed to talk after we adjourn.
I know, but I'm talking to the YouTube crowd.